We're going to be bringing you into an evening stroll and showing you some of the night sights again here in Rome. One of the great pleasures is just walking in these little alleys and discovering the little piazzas. The name of the square? Piazza
delle Coppelle.
Okay. Yes. You can try and follow a map if you like when you're wandering around here in the center of the city, but you don't really need to. You can just toss that map aside and just wander. You always run into some friendly people here. The cooks and waiters happy to get you into their restaurant. There's endless choices for outdoor dining throughout most of the year in the city. Even if you come in the wintertime to Italy, the weather is quite pleasant. And in the summer, like this is June, in the evening, the temperature is lovely. Even in the daytime, we found in June, the temperature is usually in the lower 80s to mid 80s, which is comfortable enough when you're traveling around. And at night, it'll go down into the upper 60s. People love to live outdoors in Rome. The restaurants are always bustling. Here's one of the scenic spots in front of the Pantheon. Back to the Piazza della Rotonda. And then we carry on a few blocks over to the Piazza Navona, the great outdoor living room of the city. Lots of artists are set up here, and it seems like it's busier at night than it is during the day. Right up through about midnight, you'll find lots of people buzzing around in the beautiful Piazza Navona. It's a good place to have your portrait sketched, or perhaps just buy a scenic original watercolor painting. You might have a snack at the restaurant Tre Scalini. It's a famous spot. You might not want to actually eat a meal here. It's a little expensive and touristic, but for a drink or an ice cream, you'll pay for it, but why not? A lot of street entertainment here in the city. Some of it professional, some of it just for fun. And more ice cream, more food, and more drinks. This neighborhood just behind the Piazza Navona keeps going and going. You can wander for another couple hours in that direction, and you'll run into more action, more activities, things to buy. A few shops are open, and some sidewalk stalls will be open, and of course the restaurants and cafes are open right through the early hours, usually 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Santa Maria della Pace, great church here in the back streets, just tucked in behind the Piazza Navona. And you don't have to have a big meal at these restaurants. You could just sit down and have a salad, have a plate of pasta, cost you about $10, and that's very reasonable, very satisfying. Or dig in and have a 3-course meal. This is one of the talking statues in the city from ancient days. Pasquino was a place where the ancient Romans could post messages, and people are still doing that today. Kind of a community bulletin board. The next morning, we're up for yet another walk through more of the little lanes of the city. On our visit to Rome with Hawaii Geographic, it's part of our Western Europe tour by train. We stay for 3 days in Rome, which gives us plenty of time to see the major sites and go into the little back streets and see slices of daily life, like furniture repair and restoration. And you always see this in the little back streets. They've got so many old antiques and picture frames and chairs and desks that are hundreds of years old, and they don't want to throw it away. It's too important and too valuable and beautiful, so they fix it up and restore it. They also keep their churches beautifully restored. This is Chiesa Nuova, the new church in the high Baroque style. And we're visiting these churches not so much as any religious pilgrimage, although for those who are religious, they get that much more out of it. But it's to see the incredible artworks and the architecture, the paintings, the gilding, the arches, the columns, the astounding beauty that's found in these churches of Rome. This is where all the money and creative talent went during the Renaissance and later periods. Back into our little alleys, we're going down what had been a main financial street of Renaissance Rome, Via dei Banchi Nuovo, and we're heading for Ponte Sant Angelo, but we'll get there through some detours and by watching some locals out, by looking in some of the windows of the antique shops. It's peaceful walking here because cars are generally not allowed. As we approach the Hadrian's tomb right behind Ponte Sant'Angelo, the bridge is foundations of an ancient Roman bridge, and it's a good place to do a little shopping. They've always got the sidewalk merchants there. And on to a early architectural landmark by Bramante in the Renaissance. It was considered Bramante's first work. He went on to design St. Peter's itself. Around the corner, we are back into the Piazza Navona. Once again, it seems like all roads lead to and through the Piazza Navona here in the heart of Rome. It is right in the center of this historic district. And then continuing on to the Via del Corso and the neighborhood just past the Corso, it's the Spanish Steps. They call it Spagna. We're heading to Piazza di Spagna, and around here you've got lots more restaurants, of course, always, and more shops. There's some high-end boutiques. Restaurant 34, one of our favorites. And you'll get a little street entertainment as you go. You can eat in some cafeterias here, or just a simple cafe, maybe a snack, a sandwich, a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, or a full-blown meal. A little tip for getting a table at one of these prime outdoor spots. Most of the restaurants open about 7 p.m. Some of them don't open until 8 p.m. But if you get to a place around 7 when it's opening, you can generally get a good table outside, or if you'd rather, inside. You don't really need reservations. Just get there about 7 p.m. Most Italians wouldn't dream of eating at that hour. That's way too early for them. They might eat about 9 p.m. That's when the restaurants are really crowded. On to the Spanish Steps in Piazza di Spagna. It's a great gathering spot, major hangout for locals and visitors alike. You got your major newsstands here, and there's American Express, there's a McDonald's, there's a Metro, there's little gift shops. And now we're jumping across town, across the Tiber River, and we're going to take you into a beautiful small museum. But first, along the way, we're stopping at a typical deli here, a wine shop and deli, cheeses and cold cuts and meats on Via Giubbonari. This is a great road. It goes from the Campo dei Fiori over to Largo Argentina, basically. About a half mile long. Lots of little shops there on Via Giubbonari.